You believe you will learn Mandarin once you move to China. You believe the environment could teach you. And you are partly right. But here's what nobody tells you. Your Mandarin ability grows slowly, but your Mandarin identity is assigned immediately. When you arrived in China, people are not waiting for you to learn. They are categorizing you in the first conversation, the first interaction, the first week. They are asking one question, not consciously, but automatically. Which language does this person speak? And they decided based on what you produced right now. Not what you understand, not what you studied, not what you plan to do one day. If you produce English, they fire you under English. If you produce Mandarin, they fire you under Mandarin. You think you have time to prepare, but the categorization happens before you feel ready. You think people will wait for you to improve, but they are deciding now. And once they decide, changing that decision requires more than improving your language. It requires asking everyone around you to rewrite their mental model of you. Here is the part that breaks people. 6 months pass, you have been studying hard, you know hundreds of words now, you finally feel ready to speak, you try. And people look surprised, not because your Mandarin is bad, but because you are breaking characters. You are stepping outside the role they assign you through your silence. Even though they're supportive, something feels off. You are not communicating, you are requesting a category transfer. And category transfers are uncomfortable for everyone. This is what I mean when I say you missed your window. You did not miss the chance to learn, you missed the chance to shape how people see you. Your window does not close when you fail to speak. It closes when people stop imagining that you ever will. And this happens fast. In the first 2 weeks, people are still watching, still collecting data, still forming their model of you. But by week 3, the model is set. By month 2, it's locked. By month 6, it's concrete. And now you are learning from outside, trying to get in. This is not about whether you can learn Mandarin in China. You can. This is about whether you can belong, whether you can enter the world the language unlocks, whether you can claim membership while the doors are still open. Because Mandarin is a success, and if you do not signal membership early, the door closes while you are silent. Let me show you the mechanism behind this. Here's what's actually happening. You think Mandarin learning is about input and output. Hear more, speak more, simple equation. But in real life, language is not just about communication, it's about signaling. Every time you produce language, you are sending a signal about who you are, which group you belong to, where you sit in the social structure. Their brain is categorizing you, English speaker or Mandarin speaker, insider or outsider. Here's the part most people miss. Silence is not neutral. When you arrive in China and stay silent in Mandarin, you are sending a message. People receive the message. They adjust, they switch to English. They create a translation layer. They build a communication pattern around your silence. And this pattern becomes your social identity, the identity others hold of you. Now, here's the mechanism that traps people. The longer you stay silent, the higher cost of speaking becomes. Not the language cost, the social cost. Week 1, you're silent. People think maybe they are shy, maybe they are adjusting. The door's still open. Week 4, you are still silent. People think, okay, they do not speak Mandarin. We should use English with them. Month 3, you are still silent. Now people are not thinking about you anymore. They have categorized you, fired you, moved on. The pattern is set. Now, month 6, you finally speak. And now something different happens. You are breaking the pattern. You are asking people to recategorize you. And this creates friction, not because people are unkind, but because you are making them to do cognitive work. You are asking them to update their model. Brains resist updates. Brain likes consistency, prediction, patterns that do not change. So when you finally speak after 6 months of silence, you are threatening the established pattern. And your brain knows this. This is why you freeze, not because your Mandarin is weak, but because speaking feels socially unsafe. Your brain is running a calculation. If I speak now, after all this silence, what happens? Will people accept me? Will they think I'm showing off? Will I look foolish? These are not identity questions, and your brain prioritizes identity safety over language practiced every time. So you freeze, not because you cannot speak, but because speaking threatens your social precision. Let me show you why this gets worse over time. The longer you wait, the more eyes are on you. Week 1, nobody is watching. You are new. Everyone expects mistakes, expect adjustment. Speaking broken Mandarin feel normal. Month 6, you feel like everyone is watching. You have been here 6 months. You have established yourself. You have credibility, a professional image. And now speaking broken Mandarin feels like risking the image. Like admitting you have been silent for 4 months. Like exposing incompetence in front of people who think you are competent. You feel exposed. You feel like everyone is evaluating you. Why is their Mandarin so basic after 6 months? These thoughts might not be real, but they feel real. And the feeling is enough to stop you. This is social cost escalation. The longer you wait, the higher the cost becomes, not just in your head, but in reality. The pattern is stronger, the expectations are set, the image is established. And changing it requires more courage, more social risk, more willingness to look incompetent temporarily. And most people cannot do this, not because they are weak, but because the cost becomes too high. So here's what you need to understand. Your integration window is about social timing, not language ability. It's the period when the cost of speaking is still low, when people are still forming their model of you, when the pattern is still flexible. This window is short, 2 weeks, maybe 3. After that, you are not joining anymore. You are petitioning to join. And petitioning requires justification, proof, overcoming resistance. Joining just requires you to show up. This is why arriving ready matters. You need signal membership before the window closes, before people fires you, before costs become too high. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. You have been in China for 4 months now, 4 months at this company. Your colleagues are kind, professional, they make sure you understand everything important. But every day at lunch, something happens. You all sit at a long table, 8 people. You are one of them, physically. But the moment everyone sits down, the room splits. Not physically, linguistically. English disappears, Mandarin takes over. Faster Mandarin, natural Mandarin. They talked about their weekends, someone mentioned a show, everyone has seen it. They reference a scene, everyone laughs. You hear the laughter, you see their faces. You feel the energy, but you are not part of it. You are near it, beside it, observing it. Someone makes a joke, the whole table erupts. You smile, you laugh, but half-second late. Because you are guessing, you caught the word, maybe 2, but not the meaning, not the timing, not the punchline. And this half-second delay tells you everything. You are not inside the rhythm. You are watching the rhythm happen. Someone turns to you, they see you are quiet, they switch English now. Sorry, we are talking about a TV show. You nod. Sounds funny? They smile, kind, patient. Then they turn back to Mandarin, back to the flow. And you sit there. You want to say something, you have been studying, you know words, but the moment is wrong. The topic has moved. By the time you process what they said, they have already 3 topics ahead. So you stay quiet, and the silence grows. Not just today, every day, every lunch, every tea break. And here's what you think. If I had just tried in week 1, if I had just said something simple, if I had just shown them I want to speak Mandarin, they would have included me. They would have slowed it down. But you did not. You were silent in week 1. And silence sent a signal. The signal was, do not include me in Mandarin conversation. And they received it. They adjust. They create a pattern. English with you, Mandarin with each other. And now, 4 months later, the pattern is locked. You are being accommodated, and accommodation keeps you outside. This is about the role you accepted, the role your silence created, the identity that forms why you waited. And now, the cost of changing it feels impossible, because you are not just learning to speak, you are asking 8 people to change how they communicate with you. You are disrupting the established flow. And your brain knows this, so it stops you with a feeling. Not now, not here, not in front of everyone. And so, you stay quiet. 1 more day, 1 more week, and the gap grows wider. 8 months now, you have been studying every single day. Apps in the morning, podcasting in the commute, flashcards before bed. You know hundreds of words, you can read message, you understand conversation, you are ready now. You decide, tomorrow at lunch, you will speak Mandarin. That night, you rehearsed in your head, in the shower, in bed. You imagine the moment someone will ask a question, you will answer in Mandarin, clearly, confidently. They will be impressed. Everything will change. So, next day comes. Lunch. Your heart is already beating faster. You sit down, the conversation starts in Mandarin, as always. You wait. Your moment comes. Someone asks you something. A simple question. Are you free this weekend? This is it. You practice this. You take a breath. You speak. 这个周末我有空. I'm free this weekend. Your tones are not perfect. Your rhythm is slightly off, but it's clear. There is a pulse, a tiny, tiny pulse, but you feel it, like the room just recollaborated. People turn, they look at you, someone smiles, wide, surprise. 哇，你会说中文? Wow, you speak Chinese. And right there, in that sentence, you hear it. The surprise, like you just revealed a hidden talent, like you were not supposed to speak. Someone else joined in. 你学了多久? How long have you been studying? They are speaking Mandarin to you now. This is what you want, right? 8个月, 8 months. You see it and you see it. The quick glance between two colleagues. Not mean, just surprised. 8 months and you are just speaking now? They did not say it, but you feel it. Then someone asks you another question in English. They switched back automatically, without thinking, because that's the pattern, the comfortable default. And just like that, the door closes again. You try it again over the next few days. Same thing. People are supportive, encouraging. Your Chinese is good. You should practice more. But the pattern does not change. You speak Mandarin, they respond in Mandarin, then they switch back to English. Because English is who you are to them, Mandarin is just a performance, a party trick. And you realize something painful. You are not speaking Mandarin. You are requesting permission to change the category. And every time you speak, you are asking, can I become someone different now? And the answer, unspoken, is, we will see. And we will see means you are still outside, still waiting, still proving. Because you did not claim the identity early, you waited. And waiting turned speaking into performing. It turned communication into petition. It turned belonging into something you have to earn, instead of something you could have simply claimed. You were not judged for your mistakes. You were not judged for your silence. And now every word you speak is colored by the month you stay quiet, and you let the pattern formed without you. Or maybe you are sitting at your partner's family dinner. The table is full, dishes crowding every space. Steam rising from soup, voices overlapping in Mandarin. Everyone is talking, laughing, sharing stories. The room feels warm, full of life, full of connection. And you are in it, but not of it. Grandma sits next to you. She does not speak English, only Mandarin. She smiles at you, warm, genuine. Her eyes crinkle. She asks you something. You hear the sound. You catch maybe 2 words, but not the meaning. Your partner translates. She's asking you if you like the food. You know quickly, eagerly. Yes, it's delicious, really delicious. Your partner translates back. Grandma nods. She looks pleased. She says something else. Your partner translates again. She made the dumpling this morning. She woke up early. Your chest tightens. You want to respond to her directly. You want to tell her how much that means. You want to show gratitude, real gratitude. But there's a wall between you, the language wall. And you are on the wrong side of it. You know some words, 谢谢, thank you, 很好, very good. But these words feels too small, too simple, not enough to carry what you feel. So you say them anyway. 谢谢, 很好吃, thank you, very delicious. Grandma smiles. She pats your hand, soft, gentle. She says something else, something longer, something without emotion in it. You do not understand. Your partner does not translate this time. The conversation moves on. Other family members talking. Faster now. More animated. You sit there. You smile when others smile. You nod when others nod. But you are not participating. You are witnessing. And inside, something breaks. Not loudly, quietly. A small, painful realization. You are sitting next to someone who loves you. Someone who wants to know you. Someone who woke up early to make food for you. And you cannot talk to her. You cannot ask her a question. You cannot share stories. You cannot build a relationship. Because gap between your heart and your mouth is too wide. Later, after dinner, your partner tells you, Grandma said she wishes she could talk to you properly. She has so many questions. about your childhood, about your parents, about what you dream about. She wants to tell you stories too. Stories about your partner when they were young. Stories about the family. But she does not know how to reach to you. And you do not know how to reach to her. And so the stories stay untold. The questions stay unasked. The relationship stays surface level. Smile, nod, 谢谢, and nothing deeper. You think about this on the way home. How many dinners like this will there be? 10? 20? How many chances to connect? How many moments that matter? And how many will you miss? Not because you do not care, but because you are not trying, but because you are not ready. And every dinner you sit through the silence is a dining you will not get back. Grammar is getting older. The time is limited, and you are spending the time on the wrong side of the language war. So let me be very clear about what the real problem is. The problem is not your ability to learn. You can learn. The problem is not even the environment. The environment can help. But the real problem is this. Language identity forms faster than language ability. And most people do not understand this distinction. They think improving their Mandarin will change how people see them. But it does not work that way. People categorize you first, then they communicate with you based on the category. And once you are categorized, improving does not change the category. You just become a better version of the same category. You go from person who do not speak Mandarin to person who is learning Mandarin, but you do not become person who speak Mandarin. Because that category is assigned early. In the first week, the first 10 interactions, the first moment people meet you. And it is assigned based on one thing, production. Not understanding, not study, not intention, but production. What comes out of your mouth? If English came out, you are English. If Mandarin comes out, you are Mandarin. Even if your Mandarin is broken, even if your tone are wrong, even if you only say 3 sentences, you signaled membership. This is why waiting is so costly. Every day you wait is a day you are not singling. Every interaction in English is another data point, another piece of evidence, another confirmation this person do not speak Mandarin. And after enough data points, the categorization becomes permanent. Not impossible to change, but resistant to change. Because changing it requires everyone to do cognitive work, to update their model, to recalibrate their expectation, to rebuild the communication pattern. And people do not want to do this work. Not because they are lazy, but because brain refers consistency, prediction, patterns that stay the same. So when you finally speak after months of silence, you are asking for a categorized transfer. And categorized transfer means resistant. Not mean resistant, just the automatic resistance. The resistance of this is not what I expected. The resistance of why are we changing now? And this resistance shows up in tiny ways. The surprise on face, the switch back to English. The question, oh, you speak Chinese, when did you start learning? These questions are not unkind, but they are evidence. Evidence that you are not inside yet. Evidence that your categories has not been changed. Evidence that you are still outside. Signal first, belong first, then learn from inside. So let me explain what actually solves this. The solution is not more input, not more listening, not more vocabulary. The solution is something I called output loop. But the output loop is not just the practicing, it's identity rehearsal. Let me explain what this means. When most people prepare for China, they study, they learn characters, words, grammar. They listen to podcasts, watch shows, they feel productive, but they are preparing the wrong system. They are preparing recognition, not production. And more importantly, they are not preparing identity. Here's what they miss. Speaking Mandarin in public is not a language act. Speaking Mandarin in public is an identity act. You are not just saying words, you are claiming membership. You are signaling belonging. You are requesting access to a social world. And this is terrifying. Not because Mandarin is hard, but because identity is vulnerable. When you speak Mandarin as a beginner, you are exposing yourself. You are showing incompetence. You are risking judgment. You are asking, will you accept me even though I'm not fluent? Will I still belong if I sound foolish? These are not conscious thoughts. These are automatic fear. And these fears stops people. Not because they cannot speak, but because speaking feels socially unsafe. This is why the output loop is so powerful. The output loop does not just build language ability, it builds identity courage. When you practice output in safe environment, something happens. You get used to the feeling of producing. You get used to making mistakes. You get used to sounding imperfect. You get used to the vulnerability. And this familiarity reduces the fear. Not completely, but enough. Enough that when you arrive in China, producing Mandarin does not feel like jumping off a cliff. It feels like something you have done before. Something you can do. Something that is part of who you are. This is identity rehearsal. You are not just rehearsing sentences. You are rehearsing being someone who speaks Mandarin, someone who makes mistakes and keeps speaking, someone who does not need permission. And when you rehearse this identity enough, it becomes real. Not perfectly real, but real enough. Real enough to signal, real enough to claim membership, real enough to open the integration window. Now, here's why this changes everything. When you arrive in China with output loop already built, you arrive different. You do not arrive hoping to learn. You arrive ready to produce. And production changes how people see you immediately. First conversation, introduce yourself in Mandarin. Simple sentences, imperfect tones, but clear. People hear you and they brain categorize you. This person speaks Mandarin. Not fluently, but they speak. And speaking is the signal. From that moment, everything changes. They speak Mandarin with you. They slow down, they help you, they include you. Not out of obligation, but because you signaled that you belong to the Mandarin group. And groups include members. Groups helps members, but only members, not outsiders trying to get in. And membership is claimed through early signals, not later ability. This is why output loop is the only thing that actually works. Because the output loop prepares your identity. It gives you the courage to signal early. It gives you the ability to produce when matters. It gives you the foundation that opens to integration window. Without the output loop, you arrive silent. You hope to learn from the environment, but the environment does not teach. The environment categorizes. And if you do not produce early, you get categorized as someone who does not. And that categorization becomes your social reality. With the output loop, you arrive ready. Not fluent, not perfect, but ready. Ready to signal, ready to produce, ready to claim membership. Now, let me explain why 5 days is enough. People hear 5 days and think it's not enough time. Not enough time to become fluent, to master tones, to learn thousands of words. And they are right. 5 days is not enough for fluency. But fluency is not the goal. The goal is identity preparation. The goal is building the output pathway. The goal is to rehearsing the courage to signal. And 5 days is enough for this. In 5 days, you can learn to introduce yourself clearly, to answer basic questions confidently, to say a few sentences about your life, not perfectly, not fluently, but clearly enough to signal. And signaling is what matters. Signaling is what opens the integration window. Signaling is what changes how people categorize you. Signaling is what determines whether you get access or stay outside. 5 days of focused output practice builds this foundation. 5 days of identity rehearsal builds the courage. 5 days of low pressure production builds the pathway. And once you have the pathway, China becomes different. Not because China changed, but because you arrive ready to use it. You arrive ready to signal, ready to produce, ready to claim membership. And the membership gives you access to the world Mandarin unlocks. The world where you belong, where you are included, where you are inside. This is not about perfect Mandarin. This is about early production. And identity is what determines everything. Your integration, your belonging, your relationship, your access to the social world. All of this is shaped by identity people assigned you. And identity is assigned in the first week, based on what you produce. Not what you plan to produce, not what you will produce one day, what you produce now. So the output loop prepares you to produce now, to signal now, to claim membership now. Before people categorize you as someone who does not, before the window closes, before the cost becomes too high. So output, identity, early signals, this is what changes everything. Most people do not lose time in China. They lose their precision before they realize it matters. Here's what most people do not realize until it's too late. The cost of waiting is not linear. The cost compounds. Every week you wait makes the next week harder. Not just harder to learn, harder to speak, harder to signal, harder to change categorize. Let me show you exactly how this works. Week 1 in China, you arrive, you're nervous. You think, I will just observe first. I will speak when I feel ready. This feels safe, smart. But something is happening that you cannot see. People are categorizing you. Every English conversation is data. Every silent moment is data. And the data is telling them, this person do not speak Mandarin. So, week 2, the pattern is forming. People automatically speak English with you now. It feels comfortable for everyone. You think, I will start learning next week. So week 4, the pattern is solid now. People do not even try Mandarin with you anymore. They just use English. They have filed you. You are in English category, and the file is starting to lock. Month 2, now you start studying. You use apps at home, you learn words, you feel productive. But you never practice speaking, never rehearse production, never build the output pathway. So your ability stays private, hidden, unused. Month 4, you know quite a lot now, but you have still never tried speak in public. And now something new happens. Fear. Fear that it's too late. Fear that people will judge you. Fear that they will wonder why you waited so long. This fear was not there in week 1. Week 1, everyone expected mistakes, expected adjustment. Speaking broken Mandarin feels normal, but month 4, the cost is high, because you have an image now. The competent professional, the reliable colleague, the person who has it together. And speaking broken Mandarin feels like breaking the image. So you wait longer. And month 6, you finally try. You say one sentence at lunch. People look surprised. Not mean, just a surprise. Oh, you speak Chinese. And in that surprise, you hear the truth. They did not expect this. They had categorized you, and you just broken the category. Now you are asking them to rebuild it. Month 8, you keep trying, but every time you speak, you feel it. The friction, the slight awkwardness, the moment people recollaborate. Not because they are unkind, but because you are changing the pattern that is 8 months old. Year 1, you can speak now, you have improved significantly. But you are still outside, still working twice as hard for half the belonging, still feeling like you are proving something, still sensing that you missed the easy window. And here's the painful truth. If you had just practiced the output for 5 days before you arrived, none of this would happen. 5 days of preparation would save you 12 months of compound social debt. 5 days of identity rehearsal would have opened the integration window from day 1. 5 days of low-pressure practice would have given you the courage to signal early. But by the time most people feel ready, they are no longer early. So, let me ask you directly. Are you planning to move to China? Are you preparing for work assignment? Are you going to spend time with family who speak only Mandarin? If your answer is yes, I need you to understand something. The environment will not save you. The environment will not build your identity for you. The environment will only respond to the signals you send. And if you send a signal, I do not speak Mandarin, that becomes your identity. Not in your head, in theirs. And once the identity is set, changing it is not about learning more. It's about identity correction. And identity correction is hard, socially hard, psychologically hard, emotionally hard. So the question is not whether you will learn Mandarin in China. The question is whether you will belong in China, whether you will be inside the social world or outside of it, whether you will have access or just the proximity. And this is determined in the first 2 weeks. Based on what you produced, based on the signal you sent, based on the identity you claim. So if you want to belong, you need to prepare your identity now. You need to build your output loop before you go. You need to rehearse the courage to produce. You need to practice signaling membership. And you need to do this in a safe environment first, so that when you arrive, producing Mandarin feels normal, not terrifying. And this is why I created the 5-day speaking challenge. It's not a fluency course. It's not a grammar course. It's an identity preparation course. 5 days of structured, low-pressure output practice. 5 days of rehearsing being someone who speaks Mandarin. 5 days of building the pathway from thought to sound. 5 days of preparing to signal. In 5 days, you will not be fluent, but you will be ready. ready to introduce yourself clearly, ready to answer basic questions confidently, ready to produce when it matters. And production is what opens the integration window. Production is what signals membership. Production is what gives you access. Early production. Production in the first week, before people categorize you, before the pattern is set, before the cost becomes too high. Let me show you two different people. Same background, same Mandarin level when they start, same destination, but different preparation. Person 1 arrived in China without an output loop. They study vocabulary, know characters, can read, but they never practiced output, never rehearsed speaking, never built the production pathway. Day 1, they introduce themselves in English. People respond in English. The categorization happens. English speaker. Week 1, the pattern forms. Every conversation in English. Every lunch in English. Every meeting in English. Week 4, they start learning Mandarin, but they learn at home, in private. They never practice in public because it feels too late already. Month 6, they try speaking for the first time. People are surprised, supportive, but surprised. It feels awkward. The pattern resists. Year 1, they can speak now, but they are still catching up, still outside, still working twice as hard for half the belonging. Now, person 2, same background, but they prepared differently. They built an output loop before they left. 5 days of focused practice, 5 days of rehearsing production, 5 days of building the courage to signal early. They arrive in China. Day 1, they introduce themselves in Mandarin. Simple sentences, imperfect tones, but clear. People respond in Mandarin. They slow down, they help. The categorization happens. Mandarin speaker, beginner, but speaker. Week 1, the pattern forms. Mandarin conversation, people include them, correct them, teach them. Week 4, they are already improving fast because every conversation is practiced, every lunch is learning, every interaction builds confidence. And month 6, they are conversational now. Not perfect, but functional. They understand jokes, contribute to discussion. Year 1, they are fluent, comfortable, confident. They have deep relationship, understanding the culture. Same person, same ability at the start, same environment, but completely different trajectory. The difference is not the talent or time invest. The difference is the 5 day. 5 days of identity preparation, 5 days of output practice, 5 days of rehearsing the courage to signal early. And those 5 days changes everything. Because those 5 days open the integration window from day 1, allow them to signal membership immediately, preventing the compound social debt, shaped their identity before others assigned it. This is what preparation creates. Not perfect Mandarin, but early access. Not fluency, but belonging. Not mastery, but membership. And membership determines your entire experience, whether you are inside or outside, whether you belong or visit, whether you have access or just the proximity. So, if you want to be person 2, you need to prepare like person 2. You need to build your output loop, rehearse your identity, arrive ready to signal. And 5 days is enough to do this. So, let me tell you what this is really about. This is not about learning Mandarin. Mandarin is just a tool. This is about access. Access to a world, a social world, a rational world, a world that exists in Mandarin. And without Mandarin, you cannot enter. You can see it, be near it, observe it, but you cannot enter it, participate in it, belong to it. Because Mandarin is not just vocabulary, Mandarin is the membership card, the access permission, the key that unlocks the door. And if you do not have the key, your door stays closed. You can knock, ask for translation, request accommodation, but you cannot walk through. Because accommodation is not access. Accommodation is someone opening the door for you temporarily, letting you peek inside, then closing it again. Access is having your own key, being able to open the door yourself, being able to enter whenever you want, being able to stay. This is the difference between belonging and visiting. Visitors need permission. Members has access. Visitors are accommodated. Members are included. Visitors are outside asking to come in. Members are already inside. And you do not become a member by improving your language slowly over months. You become a member by signaling early, by producing when it matters, by showing up ready. Language is about permission. Permission to enter, permission to belong, permission to access the social world. And permission is granted based on early signal, not later ability. If you signal early, you get permission. If you signal late, you get accommodation. And accommodation keeps you outside. Belonging brings you inside. And inside is where the real relationships are. Inside is where the real connection happens. Inside is where you stop being the foreigner. Inside is where you become just another person, part of the group, part of the flow, part of the community. This is what Mandarin unlocks. Not the ability to order food, ask for directions. The ability to belong, to connect, to access the world that matters most. The world of relationship, of family, of community. And you do not get access to this world by waiting. You get access by arriving ready. Ready to produce, ready to signal, ready to claim membership before the door closes. And 5 days of preparation gives you this. 5 days of building your output loop. 5 days of rehearsing your identity. 5 days of practicing the courage to signal. And when you arrive ready, the doors open. Not because you are perfect, but because you signaled that you belong. Belonging is about presence. Being present in the language, being willing to try, being ready to signal. This is what changes everything. Not your ability, your willingness, your readiness, your courage to show up early and claim the identity before it assigned it to you. So if you already know what kind of outsider you don't want to be, then you already know what matters before you arrive. The window does not wait for confidence. It responds to readiness. So what you do before you landed, decide where you stand after. I will see you in next video.